Thank you everybody for joining us. Today's webinar for school counselors is called After the College Acceptance. So helping families with financial aid award letters. The PowerPoint that I'm going to go through today is the exact same PowerPoint that we conduct with families. So I wanted to use the same slides that we use when we're talking to families as our guide today as we go through our discussion. As I mentioned, my name is Stephanie Wells, and I've been here at MIFA just over 17 years now. Been working in higher ed financing for almost 25 years. And I have my email and phone number right here on this slide, so if you need to reach me for anything after the webinar, feel free to do so. For those of you who aren't familiar with MIFA, we are a nonprofit quasi-state authority. We were created back in 1982, so we've been around for a while now. And we're actually created to offer a loan program for families, but since then we've gone on to create lots of additional programs and services to help plan, save, and pay for college. So we have college savings plans, and above all else, we have a great education and guidance curriculum for families and counselors with lots of tools and resources that we've put on our website, such as blogs and calculators. I'll go over a couple of those today. Lots of great information and resources, links to other reputable websites, for example, scholarship searches. Families can sign up for emails from MIFA, which will provide them a guidance-based curriculum, a couple of emails a month based on the age of their children. So they should definitely be encouraged to sign up for those. If there's a way for you to reach families, just send them a quick email, let them know about this great service. And we also have an email curriculum for counselors that is on the school counselor page of the MIFA website. The school counselor page is also where you can find your PDP information if you need to download anything. We do have lots of great seminars and webinars for families and counselors. You can find all of those at mifa.org/events. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn if you're not already doing so. For this spring season, we are using the hashtag CollegeBound2018, which is a national hashtag, so you can be part of that national conversation. We do actually have a Twitter chat with 3 colleges today at 2:30. So if you're on Twitter, feel free to follow us at MIFA Tweets and join our Twitter chat today at 2:30. So during this program, we help families understand their financial aid award letters. We invite families to bring their award letters with them to the in-person seminars. We do have a couple of webinars that we offer as well. And if families would like, they can call us, make an appointment if they want to evaluate their awards over the phone, or if they do live near Boston or work near Boston, they are always welcome to call us and make an appointment, and they can meet with one of our college planners here at MIFA. Most families do apply for aid that we're working with, but if they haven't applied for aid, there are other options. Some families choose not to apply for financial aid, so we'll talk about that. Learning how to calculate the balance due is something we can go over with families. It might sound like a simple thing to figure out, but when you're adding in unbilled costs and indirect costs and financial aid awards, which ones do you deduct from the bill, which ones do you earn, such as work study throughout the year, it can get a little bit tricky. So we do help families through that process. And then once they figure out what they owe, we'll help them come up with options to pay that college bill. So we are very well versed in creating strategies for families based on their individual circumstances and giving them good sound advice to help keep their debt as low as possible. So we always talk about the most cost-effective ways to pay for college first before we even talk about loans. And then, of course, we help families understand what's going to happen next so that they can develop an action plan. For those of you who are just joining us, just want to let you know that we are recording this webinar, and there are 3 handouts in the toolbar that you can view. One of them is this PowerPoint. And I also want to let everybody know that just logged in that we are on mute, so you will not, I won't be able to hear you if you're talking, but feel free to send a question through the chat feature and I'll answer those as we go. So just a quick refresher about the different types of aid that you might see on an award letter, or families might see. Some award letters, many award letters, might have a combination of merit-based aid and need-based aid. As most of you know, merit-based aid is based on the student's achievements. Typically, it's academic achievements, and colleges will look at the entire admissions application to determine what students they will be giving their merit-based aid through their admissions pool, the students that have been accepted. The criteria for admissions differs from school to school, and so does the type of merit-based aid, the amounts and policies surrounding those. Those can differ from school to school. Some schools offer athletic scholarships. Some schools might also offer artistic scholarships. Some schools don't offer any merit-based aid at all. So if we look at an Ivy League school, for an example, or MIT, all of their students are meritorious, so they do not give out academic scholarships, but they are very generous with their need-based aid, which I'll talk about. Merit-based aid, one thing that students and families really need to understand is with merit-based aid, the requirements to keep that merit-based scholarship is often more stringent than it is for need-based aid. And there might be other requirements, such as staying in the same major or staying in the same business school, for example, at the college. Most merit-based aid awards will require some sort of GPA if it's coming from the college. So it could be a 2.8, could be a 3.0. Families need to know exactly what those requirements are, and they should be pretty well laid out by the college in the admissions letter that details the merit-based awards. One of the things they'll also want to know when looking at merit-based aid is what happens if the student doesn't meet that GPA requirement. So if the scholarship requires that a student gets a 3.0 and they have a little too much fun first semester when they get to college and they get a 2.5, well, what will happen? Will they lose their entire scholarship? Will the college reduce the scholarship by a percentage? Or might they give the student another semester to get their grades back up? I've heard of all 3 options at different colleges, so it really depends on the school, and families need to understand what those requirements are. Now, if a student becomes ill, or if there's a family emergency, parent passes away, God forbid something tragic should happen, obviously students can work with the dean or with the college to keep that scholarship. I'm sure that colleges are very flexible in that way if there is a special circumstance. But if students just don't meet their GPA because they're, not meeting, doing their work, or like I said, maybe having a little too much fun for a semester, then they may lose a portion or all of that scholarship. I look at merit-based scholarships as part of the student's contribution towards the college bill, and it can be a pretty hefty amount at some colleges for some students, so they really want to make sure that they keep that scholarship, because typically merit-based scholarships from colleges are set up for 4 years, the same amount for 4 years. So, for example, a $40,000 scholarship would be $10,000 a year for 4 years. Most of the aid that's given out is based on a financial need formula. So federal and state aid, it's the same standard formula that everybody has looked at when they fill out that FAFSA form. And these need-based awards are calculated by filling out financial aid forms. So federal and state aid is determined by filling out that FAFSA. Many colleges also use the FAFSA to determine their own institutional aid, particularly state colleges or colleges that don't have as large an endowment as some of the private colleges do. And many colleges also give out, good sums of need-based aid. So some colleges may do a little bit of both. However, families do need to understand that no matter what type of aid they're getting, with most colleges, they won't likely receive the full amount that they're eligible for, because most colleges can't afford to guarantee a full award to every student that applies. There are a few nationwide, maybe about 100 or so, less than 100. Schools like Harvard, for example, or College of the Holy Cross come to mind, where they will meet full need, but most schools aren't able to do that. So it's a little eye-opening this time of year when families are getting their awards and they see that their amount that they owe is much higher than their expected family contribution. They're sometimes a little bit shocked about that. So it's good for us to keep driving that point home with families. So here's an example of a financial aid award at a private college. And with this award, this isn't necessarily an average amount, it's just an example of what an award might look like. And what students and families will need to do by May 1st. As you know, they need to submit a deposit at the college they're going to be attending. And they also have to accept or decline all or part of that financial aid award letter at that college that they're going to. So the first thing they'll see on a financial aid award is going to be all the free money. First up will be the money from the college. Then you'll see federal and state grants if they are eligible for those. So we do look at the free money in a separate category as work study and loans. They're all financial aid. It's great to get all of these awards, but they are very different types of awards. Work study is a job that a student will get on campus. And in this example, you can see it's a $3,000 work study award. So this student can earn up to $3,000 for this upcoming year in the work study job. The nice thing about work study is the money that they're earning does not count towards their income on the FAFSA the following year. Work study jobs are great for students who need to earn a little bit of spending money to help pay for books, supplies, transportation. It is part of that cost of attendance. Typically, with the work study award, you would not deduct that award from the bill. You can deduct the scholarships and grants and loans, but the work study job typically is not deducted from the bill to calculate the balance due, because typically work study is earned in a biweekly paycheck by the student, and they're given that check or a deposit in their bank account to help pay for their expenses. So it's typically not taken off the bill. And lastly, most families may see loans. So typically federal loans, the federal direct loan, part of the loan may be subsidized. I'll talk about that federal direct loan on the next slide. And families may see up to $5,500 in that federal direct loan. And most colleges are going to divide out the subsidized portion and the unsubsidized portion on a financial aid award. There are a small handful of colleges that do not put loans on a financial aid award because they're trying to keep debt low. So they do have students and families ask for those funds. They don't directly award them up front. But regardless, any family, any student can borrow up to $5,500 in a federal direct student loan. Now, when we talk about loans being on an award letter, it's common for a federal direct student loan to be on there, and that is a decent type of financial aid to get. We do want to caution families that see other types of loans on there. So any types of private loans, or let's say a federal plus loan, that's what I most commonly see on an award letter. It's important for families to realize and for us to let them know that the federal plus loan is not financial aid. It's a credit-based loan that the parent takes out on the student's behalf. and they do have to apply for it and be approved. So what some families will do is what some colleges might do is put a plus loan on a financial aid award as an example of how a family might pay their cost. So it might look like an award on the financial aid award, but it really is not financial aid. And like I said, families need to accept or decline and deposit at a school by May 1st. That's a national deadline. So I have a quick question that I want to answer before we keep going. And this counselor asks, how does this information apply to undocumented students and families? So as you may be aware, undocumented students and families are not eligible for federal or state aid, but they might be eligible for aid from the college. So they can look into that. But typically the federal and state grants, work study, and loans, undocumented students and families are not able to get those types of loans. Here in Massachusetts, undocumented students, or DACA students, I should be more specific there, DACA students are eligible for in-state tuition, which is a nice break, but they are not eligible for federal and state aid. I will tell you that we do have a great webinar recorded on our website for counselors that goes into all the issues that our undocumented students and international students might be facing, and that is on the school counselor page of our website. So I will point you to there for real detailed questions on resources for these students, because we have a whole hour-long webinar about it that I think you'll find really useful. But keep the questions coming, and if we have more, we'll talk about that. But we do have a webinar that's solely focused on helping undocumented students. So a little bit more about the federal direct student loan. This is a great way for the student to help contribute towards the bill. The student is the borrower on the loan. There is no credit check, which is nice. It really is the only way that a student who might be 18, let's say limited credit, maybe no income, not working full time, it's the only way for that student to go and borrow money for college. They wouldn't be able to go to a bank without a cosigner and say, I don't have any credit established, I don't work, or I don't have a full-time job, and I can't afford to pay you back for 4 years. No bank is going to lend a student $27,000 total for college if they don't have any type of cosigner in that situation. So this is a great resource for students to contribute on their own without needing a cosigner. It's really the only way that they can borrow in most cases on their own. The maximum a student can borrow freshman year is $5,500, and that amount goes up as they move on through college. The rate changes annually every July 1st. We usually find out about the new rates for federal direct student loans and plus loans in May or early June, so we should be finding out in a month or so. Right now, the interest rate is 4.45% fixed for the life of the loan. So students who are in college this year that borrowed the loan, that is their interest rate. So potentially students could have 4 different loans at 4 different fixed interest rates. The federal direct student loan can come in 2 different types. A portion of that loan could be subsidized if the family qualifies for the subsidy based on their financials and filling out that FAFSA. With the subsidized loan, no interest is accruing until after the student leaves school. So it's an interest-free loan until they graduate, which is a really nice benefit. If we look at the freshman year loan of $5,500, up to $3,500 of that could be subsidized. The additional amount, or for some students, the entire $5,500, might be unsubsidized or will be unsubsidized, meaning interest starts accruing as soon as the loan is dispersed. So students aren't required to make payments on this loan. Even if interest is accruing, they can defer payments, but interest will be building up. So we encourage them to try and pay down that interest while they're in school It's not a huge amount of money. It's a voluntary payment, and it will help alleviate their debt once they graduate. They'll only be left with what they actually borrowed, not all the interest that has accrued, and they can pay that off before it's capitalized and added to the principal balance right before graduation. So that's always good financial advice to give to families. There is a fee deducted from this student loan of 1.066%. So families want to take that into account when trying to figure out their balance due and exactly how much of this loan is going to credit towards the bill. Students will need to sign a promissory note and sign off on disclosures and go through entrance counseling, which shows that they understand their rights and responsibilities as a federal student loan borrower. So they'll need to do all of that, usually in the summer in June or July. The college that they're attending will send them information on how to do this, usually via email. It will go directly to the student, so they need to start opening up that email. And until they've gone through this process, the loan will not be credited, will not come in as an actual payment towards the bill. So they do need to get through these steps before the loan is finalized. As I mentioned, there's no payments due while they're in school, but they can make voluntary payments. And there's lots of different repayment options for them when they graduate that are very flexible if they do have trouble making the standard payment of 10 years. And I know we have a few people who have joined us. Just want to let you all know that we are recording this webinar, and you can ask questions through the chat feature. We do have handouts on the toolbar as well, and everybody is on mute. So I just want to check. We do have a question about a PLUS loan, but I'm going to hold off on that because I do a couple slides about the PLUS loan, so I'll get to that in just a minute. For verification, it's really important that families comply with all the requests they receive from the colleges. At this time of year, colleges are trying to verify some of the information that is on the family's financial aid applications. It could be the college verifying information, or the college is verifying information on behalf of the Department of Education, information that they want verified. Regardless of who is asking for the verification, they do need to comply with the request. It could be additional documentation they need to supply, business statements, for example. And the college will give the family instructions on how to comply with providing that documentation. It is important to note that until the family has gone through this verification process, if it's been requested of them, the financial aid award is not finalized and complete until this process has taken place. For families who haven't applied for aid, some may not intend to. We always encourage families to apply for aid, always, even if it's just to get that federal direct student loan. Winners of the John Abigail Adams Scholarship are required to fill out the FAFSA. Anybody who wants to apply for a PLUS loan needs to fill out the FAFSA. So there's lots of benefits to applying for aid, of course. If they haven't applied yet, they do want to get going and fill out that FAFSA. The deadline to be considered for aid from the state government is May 1st, but we don't want to wait until then because many colleges have earlier deadlines, and those deadlines for many colleges may have already even passed. Payment plans, which I'll talk about in a minute, interest-free budget plans, those are open to anyone regardless of citizenship or whether or not they've applied. So that's a great way to pay for school interest-free. And private loans are also available for families which do not require that they fill out the FAFSA form. Now, some students may find themselves on the wait list at some of their schools. And if it's a school that they really want to go to, it's at one of the top ones, on their list, there's a few things they want to consider. First, they want to make sure that they have deposited at a school that they were accepted to before May 1st. We don't want students holding out hope to get off the wait list, because that might not happen. And if it does happen, the college may not be providing the same financial aid package to waitlisted students as they would to students who were initially accepted. So if you are on the wait list, if students are on the wait list, they'll want to find out, will I get the same financial aid package as I would have otherwise? And they also want to understand that if they do go to the school that they got off the wait list for, they will lose their previous deposit at the other school. That's usually non-refundable. And it could be a few $100s, so they want to keep that in mind. Colleges' wait lists are getting longer and longer, and some of you may be aware that a wait list isn't necessarily a number. Let's say they have a wait list of 100 students where the student will know what spot they have on the wait list. It doesn't necessarily work like that. The wait list is a grouping of students who were not denied but weren't initially accepted, who meet the admissions qualifications. But of course, the school can't accept every student that meets their qualifications, so they put them on the wait list. And if a student wants to stay on the wait list, if they're still interested, they need to let the admissions counselor know. They need to formally accept their spot on the wait list, and they'll want to update the counselor with any recent grades, better grades, awards, updated test scores, things like that that can boost their waitlist application. Keeping in touch with the admissions counselor by writing a note or an email, as well as keeping in touch with the school via social media, all of that shows the student's interest in the school, which, as many of you know, is something that colleges look at and can benefit a student if they do have a strong interest in a school. So here we have MIFA's college cost calculator. I'm actually going to go online and do a demonstration of it live for you. A couple things I want to mention is the difference between the billed charges and the unbilled charges. You could call them direct costs and indirect costs. Really depends on the school and how they talk about it. But this calculator is really a great way for families to put in the information on their award letter. My internet's a little slow, so bear with me while it's loading. Okay, not sure what's going on here. So we'll see if this works or not. Not sure what's going on with the website right now. Okay, bear with me, folks. Okay. Let me just try something else, folks. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to, rather than using my hyperlink, I'm going to go directly to the website and look it up here. Okay, so here's the college cost calculator. So thanks for your patience. So with this calculator, families can add up to 4 schools. They could also create a spreadsheet. I've seen many families do that. That's similar. Does the same thing. But the whole point is for families to be able to line up their awards side by side in a format that really is just the numbers in black and white, because it's a little bit more difficult when you're lining up all the different letters side by side. They don't look the same. the awards aren't the same numbers. They might call different awards different names. For example, the federal direct student loan could be listed in a number of different ways, such as direct loan or William D. Ford loan, number of different names for it. So it can be a little bit confusing. And I also like these types of calculators because it really allows you to compare them on an even playing field and look at the awards in a little bit of a different way. So I'm only going to show you one award. I'm going to make up the numbers as we go for private college. So I'll put in the tuition, and I'll put in some fees. And when I'm talking to families here, I let them know that typically private colleges are going to have a higher tuition number, and the fees might be a little bit low, might be a smaller number. Whereas with the public colleges, it could be reversed, where the tuition is the lower number and the fees are lower. So when they're comparing costs, they do want to sort of add up the tuition and fees if they want to compare apples to apples. And then we'll put in some room and board. And this is where I also give some advice about different dorm options that are available to help save on that bill. Getting roommates, living in a quad instead of a single, living in one of the older dorms instead of the brand new dorms that they showed you on the college tour. Things like that can help save a little bit of money. And then we have our health insurance, which I'm going to put in 0. And we always want to let families know that health insurance is required. So if the student is insured under the family's plan, they'll want to make sure that that insurance plan will go with the student if they are going out of state, and it will work the same way, and they will be covered in the same way that they need to be as they were if they were here in Massachusetts. If that isn't the case, or if the student doesn't have insurance, then they can buy the school's insurance. But that is a pretty hefty cost of close to $2,000 at some schools. So the families want to make sure they waive that fee if they do not need the insurance. So if I scroll down, you can see here on the calculator, it's adding up our total direct costs. Then I'm going to put in my free money, my free grants and scholarships. And again, I'm just estimating, making up some numbers here. So I put in my federal grants, my state grant, and my grant from the college, $20,000. If they wanted to put outside private scholarships or other grants in here, they can. And you'll notice it's tabulating the amounts down below. Then we'll put in my $3,500 subsidized loan, my $2,000 unsubsidized loan. If they are looking to borrow any other loans, they could put those in here as well. And then if they want to put in any savings or other resources, they can do that and plan here too. I'm just going to put in 0 for now, just to show you the example. So you can see it's added up the direct costs, the grants and scholarships and the loans, and deducted the financial aid from that direct cost. So that $50,000 number is looking a little bit more reasonable at a little over $23,000. And then if they want to add another school, they can add up to 4 schools, and they can also print a copy of this calculator. Now, what I like about this when you're looking at the schools side by side is you can see, okay, how much is each school charging for tuition? What are they charging in fees? Most importantly, how much are they giving me in free money? So awards that may look similar, you can really break them down and compare them here on the calculator in a much better way. And then you'll see any loans that the school is recommending. So if a school is adding in one of those Federal Plus loans, that will jump out at you on this calculator. And then they can see down below what is going to be the remaining costs. What do they have to come up with? Okay. All right here. So sorry about the technical difficulties with the website. So in addition to the bill charges, we also let families know, we want to remind them that there's going to be additional charges, such as books, transportation, might need a laptop, personal expenses, all those supplies that they need for the new dorm. They don't want to forget about those costs. If they can get away with paying for those costs out of pocket so they don't have to borrow for them, that's always a good idea. We always recommend that. They can also look at ways to reduce their indirect costs. So buying used books, taking the T instead of parking, things like that. They can definitely shave down their own cost. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to different strategies that families might look at when they're looking to pay the college bill. If you do have any questions, feel free to write those in the chat feature, and I will go through those in a second. So what we recommend families to do is a combination plan. There's not one way to do it. Families can really pay the bill any way they choose. But we like to encourage families to try and look at past and present income first before looking at future income in the form of borrowing a loan. So families have saved, for this example, the family owes $20,000. If they haven't saved the whole $20,000, then they have to look at other options. If they wanted to put the entire $20,000 on a monthly payment plan using present income, that payment would be about $2,000 a month for 10 months. So if that's a little too steep for a family, then they do need to look at additional options as well. In this example, we started with saving. Students saved a little bit over the summer. Maybe the parent saved $16,000, so they've decided we'll do $4,000 a year for 4 years. So we've knocked $5,000 off the bill for the first year. Then we're going to do a payment plan for $5,000. So when we're looking at a balance due, I always like to ask families, well, how much can you afford per month? Because I know that for this example, a private loan is going to cost about $200 a month for a $20,000 loan. So if families can afford more than $200 a month, then they do want to look at a payment plan or looking at, paying some money out of pocket. So that $2,000 a month on a payment plan might be a little too steep, but maybe they can afford $500 a month on a payment plan. So knocking $5,000 more off that bill. So in this example, we weren't able to get around paying the entire bill out of pocket with savings and present income and no borrowing, but at least we're able to chop it in half and borrow only $10,000 versus the full $20,000. So I'm going to go through some more examples in a little bit more detail about savings, payment plans, and loans. So there's lots of different ways that families may have saved. 529 college savings plans, such as the U Fund, are very common, very popular. They're a great way to have saved tax-free. But, the student might have an old bank account that they have their, graduation money in. They may have old savings bonds that they were given during maybe their baptism or christening. So you want to dig out all of that information. If grandma or grandpa has a savings plan, or if they've been putting in money away, you want to take that into account. Any amount families can use out of savings is going to definitely be a great way to avoid borrowing. It's going to open up more options for them. But we know that not everybody has been able to save the entire amount they owe, or at least the amount for all 4 years. And that's common for most families. So I always like to make sure that families don't feel too horrible about the fact that they didn't save, because we always get a lot of guilt. Families feeling a little bit of guilt at this time of year, which they really shouldn't. The fact is, if they've saved anything, that's great. And if they haven't been able to save, because of their personal financial situation, then there'll be other options that we can help them with as well. So it is different from family to family, but regardless, if they have been able to save, they'll definitely want to create a strategy on how they want to utilize those savings. Here at MIFA, we have our phone numbers and emails and websites for the U Plan and the U Fund. If they've taken out a U Plan through MIFA, they can call us if they want to know approximately how much it would be worth at a particular school, or if they cashed out that plan. We will be sending distribution forms to families in April so that they can let us know where the student is going. They also may have saved in a 529 college savings plan, maybe a U Fund through MIFA. In those cases, we definitely want them to be talking to our plan advisors over at the U Fund over at Fidelity Investments to get any advice from certified financial planners about how they might want to utilize their 529 plan. Then we look at interest-free monthly payment plans. So every college has an interest-free monthly payment plan that allows families to spread their cost interest-free over 5 to 12 months. A typical plan is going to be a 10-month plan that starts in May, June, or July. So if they don't get started on the plan till June, let's say, some schools may say, okay, well, you can do a 9-month plan starting in June, or you can make your May back payment and still stay on the 10-month plan. But one way or another, the family definitely wants to look into the option at the college. There's usually a minimum enrollment fee of maybe $50 to $100. And typically the college will reach out to families with this option from the bursars or student accounts department, but they can always find that on their website as well. Okay, and then once we utilize what we can in savings and payment plans, then we might want to look at any additional loan options for the family. Now, when I talk about private loans or family loans, we really are talking about credit-based loans. We're not talking about the federal direct student loan. That's financial aid. That's a good investment for the student to make towards their contribution of the bill. But when we start looking at additional loans, they're much different. As I mentioned, they are credit-based, so families need to know what their credit history is looking like. If they might need a additional credit-worthy co-borrower, for example, like grandma or grandpa, or maybe mom or dad has bad credit and they can get the other spouse to co-sign to get that loan approved. But we don't want them borrowing more than what they need. We want to make sure that they can get some sound advice. We're happy to help them talking about savings and payment plan options before they borrow. Although this is an annual process where they apply for aid each year, and if they need loans, they apply each year, we do want to encourage families to think about the 4-year plan and the total amount of debt that they might be considering taking on. Hopefully they can do this before they deposit at May 1st to make sure that they have a plan. So the first year borrowing, let's say $20,000 at $200 a month, that might seem pretty reasonable for a family, but they have to consider that they're probably going to need to borrow years 2, 3, and 4. And then they're looking at about $800 a month total in monthly loan payments. Can they afford that amount? We do want them to project and estimate out 4 years, especially if they have other children coming down the line, or if they have their own student debt that they're paying off. We really want them to consider the impact before taking on additional debt. In addition, if they are parents are expecting the student to pay back these family loans that mom or dad is co-signing or taking out for them, they want to make sure that the student will be able to make those payments and be able to help out with that, because they will probably have their own federal student loans. If they borrow the full amount, it'll be about $300 a month, so they want to take that into consideration. Will their career or major provide them with a high enough salary to make those payments? What are the employment rates for those majors or careers? Things like that. They do want to estimate and sort of project out a few years to make sure it's going to work then as well. Now, in the handouts, you'll see we did I did add a Be a Wise Borrower sheet. So I'm going to bring that up real quick right now so you can see it. Again, having technical difficulties here. Not sure why these links aren't working. I just did a webinar last week and I had no problems. But you'll see the Be a Wise Borrower, the PDF there in the handout, so you can take a look at that. As all kinds of great Be a Wise Borrower tips, as well as the MIFA loan options on there. And we will be giving these out after the college acceptance seminars. But some of the things we advise is to really understand the type of loan they're taking out. What is the interest rates? What are the APRs? How long do they have to pay back that loan? What's the affordable monthly payment they can take on? As well as who is the primary borrower and whether the student is expected to help pay that back and whether they'll be able to. Multiple credit inquiries in a 30-day window for one type of debt is only going to count as one inquiry. And we will have a loan options webinar coming up in June and the same one in July, which will go into a lot of fine detail about comparing loan options. So please share that information with families, encourage them to sign up for our webinar. As always, we do record all the webinars, so they're on our website if they can't make it to the live webinar. So here's MIFA's loan payment calculator that can come in handy. I'm going to attempt to open it. I might have to go into our website if this website doesn't cooperate. Let's see if it works. And with this loan payment calculator, it helps families look at the amount that they might need to borrow and project out what that payment might be. So I'm just going to go back on the MIFA website real quick and find my loan payment calculator. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So you can see most of the things on the MIFA website are very easy to find in the search bar. So here's our loan payment calculator, and I'll use our $20,000 example. And I really like to do this with families that are considering taking on significant amounts. I have talked to families who are looking at $50,000, $60,000 payments that they need to make, and how are they going to make those numbers work. So I'm just going to do the $20,000 for now, 4 years before graduation. Hit calculate. Easily it tells you what the monthly payments will be for all of the 5 different repayment options that MIFA has, the in-school payment and the post-college payment. And you'll see on the third line is the total cost of the loan. So that's a really important number for people to look at when they're looking at borrowing, so that they understand that they're not just paying back $20,000, it's $20,000 plus the interest. So these amounts are the maximum amount if they make minimum payments for the 10 or 15 years. They can always, with all education loans, pay the loan off sooner, make larger payments to reduce that payoff timeline and reduce the total cost of the loan. There's no prepayment penalties on any of these education loans. The rates start at 4.69%. We always get the question at every single one of these programs, what's the difference between the MIFA and the PLUS loan? As I mentioned, that PLUS loan, families may see those on an award letter, so it's important for us to all understand exactly what that type of loan is. Both are good options for families to consider. They're not the only options out there. They could also look on a college's website to see if they have any recommended lenders that they've worked with in the past that provide good service. They can go to their bank or local credit union. They might be able to get a good deal there. MIFA's rates, as I mentioned, are fixed. They start at 4.69%. The PLUS loan is 7% currently. It's a fixed interest rate. You do have to fill out the FAFSA to get a PLUS loan. With the MIFA loan, it really is more of a family loan where the student is a borrower, but a parent or someone who's creditworthy is also on that loan. It doesn't have to be a parent though. The PLUS loan, however, it does have to be a parent or custodial step-parent that's taking out the loan, and the student is not on that loan. Both are credit-based. You can use the PLUS loan anywhere in the country, and the MIFA loan you can use anywhere in the country as well if you're a Mass resident. If the family does not live in Massachusetts, but they're coming to school here, at any of the colleges in Massachusetts, they can also use the MIFA loan here. So a California resident going to UMass Amherst could use a MIFA loan to help pay for that. Repayment begins after the spring semester is fully dispersed, so usually in February. There is an origination fee on each of these loan options. With the MIFA loan, it's a 4% fee that's added to the loan. So if a family borrows $10,000, we're sending $10,000 to the school. The PLUS loan, like the federal direct student loan, deducts the origination fee from the loan amount. And that fee is 4.264%. So if they borrowed $10,000, it's going to be $10,000 less that fee that's actually credited towards the bill. So it's important for families to take that into a calculation. So let me just take a quick second before we keep going, before we wrap up, just to answer any questions that have come in. I only have a couple here, but I do want to mention these. So the first question is about Parent Plus loans and whether they can be deferred when a student goes to graduate school. And the answer to that is no. They can defer the Plus loan while the student is in undergraduate school, but it can't be deferred for graduate school. Now, if you had a graduate student who took out a Grad Plus loan, they could defer those payments. But if it's a parent taking out the Plus loan for an undergraduate student, they can only defer those payments while the student is in undergraduate school. So the second question I have here is about wait lists. And there's a question about schools wanting nothing from students about the wait list or from counselors, and whether or not this is more common. And I really don't know if that's the case, if colleges don't want to hear from the students. But regardless, whatever the college recommends, the student should follow through on that. So if a college says you don't need to contact us, then the student doesn't need to contact. But I still think it's always a good idea to let the admissions counselor know how excited they are about the potential. It can only boost their application. Okay, so any other questions, feel free to write those in the chat feature, and we'll answer those as we go. So a little bit about timing, so families understand what to expect coming down the road. Always like to take a little bit of this mystery out of the way for them. Is the fall semester bills will be sent in June or July, and they'll have about 3 to 5 weeks to pay that bill depending on the school. And the spring semester bill will be sent in the fall around Thanksgiving time, be due around Christmas or New Year's. So they do want to plan for that. We encourage families to give themselves a 2-week cushion when they're applying for loans before the bill is due. The process is really quick. With a MIFA loan, for example, they get an instant credit decision and they can have all their documents online signed, the whole process in about 10 to 15 minutes. It's really pretty quick and easy. But if there's any credit issues or anything like that, they want to, give themselves a little bit of a cushion. And they'll want to set up their payment plans according to the college's schedule. So if the plan starts in May, they'll want to get right on that plan as soon as they can. It's important for families to understand, though, with loans and payment plans, that until that loan is dispersed or with the payment plan at any time throughout the year, they can make adjustments. So if they borrowed, let's say, $20,000 and they realize, geez, I only need $18,000 for the year, call the lender, tell them to reduce the loan, and that shouldn't be a problem. If they need to rearrange their payment plan and increase that or decrease that, they can do that as well anytime during the year. Another common question we get at every single program is, how do we get more scholarships? So families are looking for all that free money. that they had hoped might be available, that they might not be seeing on award letters. And we always have them check in with school counselors first about local scholarship info, because that's where they will get the least amount of competition for a scholarship. There's less students applying for the local scholarships than they are, let's say, on a national scholarship search engine, like the ones that are listed here. And also scholarships that require essays. We encourage families to fill those out, encourage students, because less students want to fill out another essay or write another essay. So there might be less competition. Families should never be paying anybody to do a scholarship search for them. We are always sending out scholarship alerts of new scholarships that we come across on Facebook and Twitter. So we encourage you and students and families to follow us so that they can get that information as well. This time of year is when families will be visiting colleges at open house programs at the schools they've been accepted to. They may be making calls to the financial aid office. Could be a number of different situations where they're reaching out to the school. But we do want to encourage families to create a relationship with the financial aid office, not be afraid to call them. If they have questions about their financial aid award, they absolutely should talk to the financial aid office. They'll explain to them how they came up with that award. But they also want to make sure they understand the renewability of the financial aid criteria, whether it's a merit scholarship or a financial need-based scholarship. Families also want to know, especially at schools where they have a significant amount of financial aid, how they might treat outside private scholarships. Most colleges that are looking at outside scholarships, which families do need to report any outside scholarships they receive to the financial aid office. Most scholarships will treat that in a way that will do the least amount of harm to the student. So if there's a gap in the award letter, for example, the college might apply that scholarship to that gap. If a college has fully met the family's financial need, then a college will need to take something out of that award to add in the scholarship because they've already met the full need of the family. So they may reduce the student loan, for example. But it's important for families to know how that will be treated. If they have any special situations, somebody's lost a job or lost overtime or a huge amount of unreimbursed medical expenses, God forbid something happened in one of these blizzards we had where they had house damage, those are all situations that a college may be able to take into account in reconsidering their financial aid award, and they might be able to make adjustments. It's always a good thing to talk to the financial aid office about these special considerations. Now, we do get the questions all the time as well about negotiating financial aid award. And what I always tell families when I hear the negotiating term is, if you don't have a special circumstance, if you don't have a real reason, nothing's changed to get more financial aid, you just want more financial aid because the student is looking at attending a college that costs more than some of the other awards that they got. In that situation, you might just want to explain to the college, how there's a big discrepancy with some of the other awards that they got from schools that cost about the same, and try and have the financial aid office help them understand why there's such a big difference. So that can help. Maybe there's adjustments that could be made, things that the financial aid office wasn't aware of. Or in some cases, if this family, another $3,000 would help make the decision easier. If they have a specific amount, they can always ask. They might get a no, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And some colleges may give a couple extra $1,000, to make the family feel good about the award and feel good about attending that school, to try and get them in the door. So it doesn't hurt to ask. We don't use the word negotiating because colleges, are putting their best awards up front. But it never hurts to talk to the financial aid office and see if there's anything they can do. We do encourage families to set up appointments and go to financial aid presentations at the open house and orientation programs. They can get a lot of great information by talking to those colleagues in the financial aid office, or setting up an in-person phone call, meeting, whatever works, but definitely we want to encourage communication so that families really understand their awards. So I have another question. I know it's 11 o'clock, so I know some folks might need to get off the webinar, so I'll answer this one question that just came through. But just remember, if you do have to leave to get to a meeting or something, the webinar is almost over, but we are recording it, so you won't miss anything. I'll share the recording. But this is a good question. Can MIFA loans be consolidated with other government-based loans? And the answer to that is yes, but they want to do so with caution. So there's a couple of different options that families will have when looking at consolidating loans after the student graduates or leaves school. There is federal consolidation where students or federal loan borrowers can consolidate their federal student loans through the federal government. So that's consolidation where it's going to be a weighted average of the interest rates on all of those loans. It's going to be a new loan with a weighted average interest rate. Then there's another concept called refinancing, and MIFA does have a refinancing program that families can think about. This is well after the student graduates, after they've been in repayment for about a year on their student loans, where families can refinance any of their education loans as long as the borrower on that refinance loan is a borrower on the education loans. So it could be a MIFA loan and let's say a PLUS loan that they want to refinance, but regardless, the family would be paying off the old loans and taking out a brand new loan at a different interest rate. So if they had any benefits, federal loan benefits through their direct student loan or anything like that, they will lose those federal student loan benefits. We do want to counsel them and be cautious of refinancing federal student loans because there are some benefits and repayment options that they won't get through a private refinancing loan. Okay, so what's next? As a reminder, we want to make sure May 1st, everybody has to make a deposit at one of the schools they're accepted to. Get to that orientation open house programs, one last look at the schools, sit down, create a strategy to pay the balance due, involve the student as much as possible so that they understand what those payments are going to be and how much they're expected to borrow. Of course, MIFA is here with lots of resources on our website and counseling with our college planning team. The phone number's here, 800-449-MIFA. They can also email us at info@mifa.org at any time. As you can, as counselors, you can email us too. Or you can email any of your colleagues here at MIFA directly. If you have any questions or questions with families, I often get phone calls from school counselors that may have a family with a situation they're dealing with. Once again, connect with us on social media. If you're able to, please join us today for our 2:30 Twitter chat. We'll have colleagues from Worcester State, North Shore Community College, and Amherst College in the financial aid offices on that Twitter chat answering families' questions, so feel free to join us for that. And with that, I'm going to end the webinar. I'm going to open it up for questions. I'll keep the line open for another minute or two, so if you have any questions, please type those in the chat feature now. For those of you who need to leave and get back to work, I will be emailing you probably tomorrow or Thursday with the recorded version of this webinar. So keep an eye out for that, and please let me know if you do need a certificate of attendance, and I can email that to you as well. So I'll write my phone number and email once more in the chat feature if you need it. So feel free to type in those questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming through, so I am going to end the webinar there. And if you do have any questions that pop up, I just sent out my email and phone number, so feel free to reach out to me. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and have a great week. And we hope to see you at one of the After the College Acceptance seminars. Please feel free to share that information with families. Thanks and have a great day.